it after, so we'll open our meetings, and the Board of Supervisors will open first, and all of our members are present, plus our clerk, Ms. Teresa Law, and our county administrator, Mr. Barton, and our IT director, person, Adam Mullins, is present for us. And I will call our meeting to order. And I will ask A.C. Blevins if he would lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for blessing us with another beautiful day, Father, another day of life. Thank you for watching over and taking care of us. Pray that you be with each and every one in this meeting, Father. Pray we might conduct it in a way that will be pleasing to your will, Father. We might be able to do business for our county and do it the way that it needs to be done. We might upbuild our county. Father, each and everything we do, we want to do it for your honor, and we thank you for it. We ask especially, Father, this evening that you be with all the ones that suffer from this terrible hurricane that's going through here, Father. Bless them. Ask that you watch over us, lead, guide, and direct our lives. When you're through with us down here, pray that you might honor us, crown us, ours, not kingdom. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, A.C.
Thank you, AC.
And Mr. Thacker, since you've been on a long trip, would you say the pledge for us today?
Sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I will remind my board that we will go by the rules that we adopted back at our organizational meeting tonight.
Let the IDA call to order.
Y'all ready for me? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call the, thank you, Chairman, Board of Supervisors, and County Administrator, and all your esteemed guests, staff. I'll go ahead and call the Industrial Development Authority meeting to order, special call meeting October the 3rd. We have a full house here right now today. As of today, we only have 5 sitting members with
Six.
Six? Yeah, I'm sorry, 6, you're right. 6 sitting members. We had a member, of course, Butch Lambert resigned earlier today due to some personal problems with his family there. So, but we do have on hand our executive director and our legal representative. So 6 does constitute a quorum. And I'd like to just take a minute and add to what AC said, that if everybody could find a few minutes in their nightly prayers to think of the folks down in North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee. Those folks really suffered a loss, and our community knows what that's like in many ways. We went through that a few times ourselves, so I know I sure have been praying and sympathize with them all. And just hope we can help in any way we can. So, Board of Supervisors, we appreciate you inviting us over tonight. And
Thank you.
let y'all go ahead.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the presentation of concept for the former Hayside High School property. Are you going to do it on this?
Well, if
You're
it's
gonna
okay,
do-
Madam Chairman, I'd like to go just back over for the sake of historical, just to go through what we have done so far, and then we can pass out the concepts and we'll put them up on the screen. I actually have prints for everybody.
Okay.
But first, I just want to say thank you to you and Chairman Yates and the rest of the board members for coming together this evening. It was the last time that we all met together. It was back in March of this year, whenever we had a full economic development update at that time, where we went through each of the projects that we currently are working on through the IDA. And the reason for coming back together tonight is at that meeting, we had discussed the former Hayside High School site. We discussed some potential barriers to funding, and we discussed some potential concepts for that site. And at that time, the direction was to go back and get some concepts and for us all to come back together. So that's why we're here today. But just for the sake of going back through so that we're all on the same page as far as what we have completed, and I just kind of have a little bit of a timeline. So first, the demo project for the school was actually fully completed by the spring of 2022. That first study that we conducted, which was a very high-level feasibility study, and it is typically the first study that would be conducted on a property, was completed in March of 2023, and that was the structure report that we received. With that, we were able to get a very high-level idea of the site plan and what we could potentially put on there. However, there were some challenges with the report in that some of the topography stuff didn't come through, so we actually lost a little bit of acreage from that potential report, not acreage, but feet, I guess, that were buildable just because of that ledge on that far side of the school. But at that time, we decided to go ahead and get a more descriptive, I guess you would say, feasibility plan. And at that time, we engaged with Mark Smith, who is an architect that formerly worked with Architectural Partners. And we also worked very little with an engineering firm out of Charlottesville, I believe, Hurt and Profit, is that correct?
They were doing some of the engineering.
Engineering work, right. At that time, the thought was, and this was, you know, the Army Corps of Engineers 202 floodproofing plan has really provided a lot of hiccups, I guess if you can say, a lot of unknowns along the way. Because what we originally thought was going to happen is that there would be several businesses that are located either in the downtown area of Hayside or in Sand Lake that would need to have a place to relocate if they chose to accept the buyout from the Army Corps of Engineers. So at the time when Mr. Smith came to Dickinson County, we did go to Hayside. We were at the site, and I think, Mary, you had just had your knee surgery recently, so you weren't able to be there, but you did have staff members who were there.
No, I got on the phone with you while you was down there.
Yep, and we met with the business owners that had interest in locating at that site. We walked the site. We had the Dickinson County PSA there, who owns the sewer access, the Cannon County PSA, which actually owns the water. We had AEP there to discuss the current power line situation and whether there would be any flexibility with going underground or moving those. I think that covers everybody that we had there. And of course, we were all there with them as well. So at that time, the plan was to develop, to look at the site and what was feasible as far as square footage that we could build there. Where was a space for a potential grocery store, hardware store, post office, and other businesses that may need to be able to relocate. So while we were in the middle of doing that, we started getting information from individuals who were in contact with the Army Corps of Engineers, because as you all know, we're not privy as the locality to that information. It is confidential information. So the only way that we really know what's happening is by word of mouth and talking to those people. And so what we've learned, and this is secondhand information, this is not directly from the Army Corps of Engineers, but the original thought was that businesses would be bought out to replace their business. And and I don't know whether it changed or what happened, but currently what it appears is that the Army Corps of Engineers is only offering whatever the property value is for the location, not any value towards the business. So what that does is it leaves these businesses that want to remain open with very little options of being able to relocate, because the purchase price of the property is, for most of them, is not going to be a fraction of what it would cost to even repurchase material, their inventory. So at that time, was not long before we all came back together and said, we need to change directions here, because what we originally were working towards doesn't seem like that's what we're going to need now. We're not going to need a space for the grocery store. We're not going to need, these things, because these businesses are not relocating. So what we decided to go ahead and do, though, was to start the traffic study, because we knew that we would need to have that data, because we had met with VDOT 2 or 3 times and discussed this project, and they had indicated to us that they thought, based upon current regulations with VDOT, that there would need to be some changes to the egress, that kind of stuff, with the entrances and exits of the property. So we went ahead and we had the traffic study completed. That began in October of '23. 4 or 5 months later, we got the completed report back. And as we're going through these plans, we'll talk about that a little bit more because I want you to be able to see it on these maps. So we do know what we would need to do, and it is what VDOT had recommended, or what they thought the results would be. So there will need to be some work to both entrances of that property. Around the time that when we met last, we talked some about the AMLR funding, which is the Virginia Energy Abandoned Mine Land Fund. In 2022, we had submitted an application to Virginia Energy for a little over $2 million, I believe it was, for site development for this property. The plan, as I said at that time, was to be able to relocate some of these businesses that were going to be potentially bought out from the Army Corps of Engineers. So around the same time that we learned that we had been selected to begin the financial vetting process, doesn't mean we were awarded the money, but as long as we checked all the boxes and went through this process, which is pretty long, we could potentially have access to that money. Around that time, we were advised and learned that there were some new regulations regarding AMLR. And if he doesn't mind, I'll let Freddie just explain again a little bit about what those caveats are that may need to change our direction a little bit.
One of the things that we encountered was the possibility of what's called a federal interest. A federal interest is where if we accept the AMLR money, then the Office of Surface Mining would have oversight over what we did with the property, and they would have the ability to allow us to transfer the property or decline to let us transfer the property. And it really takes away a lot of flexibility that we have as far as development. That is a process that has been examined. It's my understanding that legislation may be introduced to clarify that somewhat, but until there is some type of clarification, I wrote a memo to the IDA that there could, in my opinion, you cannot utilize that money if there was any intention of ever transferring the property. And so the AMLR funds are still questionable at this stage. We still do not have an answer. And so that's what led to putting the pause button on the AMLR funds.
And that interest is in perpetuity, correct?
It would be in perpetuity forever.
Right. We do have some of the information that we have received is, it does look like there may be a solution in the pipeline. What exactly that looks like, we're unclear of, and the time frame for that, we're unclear of as well. There was some indication that perhaps after the election in January may be a time that it comes back up again. But again, we all know the process for any type of legislation, anything from any level could take some time. So we're really not sure how that's all going to shake out. But it does feel like it may be a more viable option at this time than it did in March. Would you agree with that?
I'll wait and see what the legislation says. I'm not as optimistic as you are. But it's not to say that AMLR funds can't be used, but in my opinion, they can only be used for projects that the county intended to retain ownership of.
And that's as of it stands right now.
That's as we're here right now.
Right. And so one of the barriers with doing that as a small locality, one of the advantages or incentives that we have to be able to market to a potential prospect is that incentive of land. So by keeping it in the county's hands, it really limits what we would be able to do with it. But also, this past July, one thing that we had talked about previously was we were approached by the University of Virginia. They actually came to me and said, We have an EPA grant that we're applying for. We feel like we could potentially add a project in the Hayside community for a flood shelter or an emergency shelter that can also be doubled as a community center, or we've talked about voting poll location or something of that nature. We did submit for that in July. We have not heard back from that. The last time I did speak to them, though, they were hoping to hear something in the next 2 to 3 months about whether or not that award would go.
How much did you apply for there, Jack?
2 million, it was I think 2.4 million.
Okay,
It was 3,500.
3,500 square feet.
okay. Is there a match on that?
What's that?
Is there a match on it?
No, nope. We still have available from the demo fund from VCETA from whenever, so the demo fund was a combined fund that was for the demolition of the former Clintwood High School and the Hayside High School. We do still have $88,000 left in that fund that can be utilized for this particular site. So now I think would be a good time, if it's okay. Freddie, do you have anything else to say about or Larry, on what I've just talked about so far? So if we can just, I'll pass around these concepts. There's 3 different ones. So do you mind if I just give them, we pass them down? All right. I have a small one here. Here, we'll just take, it's already past the other ones. There you go. Everything's gonna be different. So what we're passing around are the 3 conceptual redevelopment plans. Adam, are you able to put those up on the screen? Okay, thank you. And so the first thing, while you're still passing them around, that I will point out is we have 3 different concepts with varying purposes, I guess you can say, for the property. So for the purpose of our discussion, there's 2 things to remember. What we're really looking at is the site development project, but the reason that these 3 plans are important is because based upon the direction that we go, could significantly impact our funding opportunities and our funding sources. So, what we tried to do was direct our architect to give us just some variations so that you can conceptually see what it may look like once we put work into the site. But again, for the purposes of what we're talking about is we're looking to get to the point of starting a site development project, and it's somewhat unfortunate that we have to make some of these decisions now, but at the end of the day, our funding mechanism could be impacted based upon what the end use of the site may look like. So we've got concept A, which, and again, he has these marked potentially on each of the concepts, but really what we're kind of looking at too is, there could be some variation in the layout of the site, of the buildings that are there. But whether or not it's going to be commercial, residential, mixed use, all of those things are very important when it comes to funding, because there's going to be multiple different funding sources out there that's available that may allow one piece of it but won't allow another piece, or it gets very complicated, and I won't bore you with all of those complications, but the main thing that we need to remember is that we need direction as far as what the end use and the end goal would be, just in order to even look at our funding package. We also need to determine whether or not AMLR is a funding option for us. And if so, do we move forward with the current, application that we have, or do we wait it out to find out if it's going to be changed that would be more applicable to what our purpose would be? So you've got the three concepts. Something else that I think it's important to point out is that the site overall is an acre and something. So what that does for us when we're looking at potential development of the site is if the site that we're constructing is under an acre, that would fall under local erosion and sediment control, okay? If it's over an acre, it falls under the Department of Environmental Quality Stormwater Prevention Program. There is a vast difference between erosion and sediment control and stormwater prevention. And just for an example, the green lot in Clintwood, when it was purchased, it was wrote up to be at 0.99 acres, is that accurate? Which would fall under erosion and sediment. For whatever reason, this was before my time, but we had to add a ditch around the property, and because of that, when it was surveyed, it was 1.03 acres, which meant we then fell under DEQ and were required to put tens of thousands.
$60,000 retainage pond.
Retainage system
lot.
underneath it. And so what that could mean for us if we're falling under stormwater management is that before we even get to a permitting, we would anticipate that there would be some type of system required for this site, whether it be an underground retainage system, which could be problematic because this site is rock, or it could require a retainage pond, something of that nature. If we were to potentially cut the site back and make a smaller project, then we would fall under erosion and sediment control, which is a local program, which is far less invasive. I don't know if that's the right word, but.
And there's a natural spot for a break if you wanted to phase the project. If you look, it would be the structures to the south, to the southeast of the project, which would be where the old custodians' quarters were at the former Hayside High School. That you could phase that area in there and stay underneath.
But again, you know, we're more looking for direction on how we should move forward, not trying to say one way or another whether we should develop the whole site or keep it under an acre, but just making sure that we are providing you with the information the best that we know right now of any types of barriers or increased costs that we could potentially encounter. So we have the concepts. And just to go through, once we're able to determine which direction we're going, the next steps to develop the site from the IDA's point of view would be to have a NEPA conducted, which we've already got approval from the IDA to do that. However, that is not necessary unless we're using AMLR money. And so whenever we paused our AMLR process, we also pause that process as to not spend that money unnecessarily. But we would need to, if we're going to move forward with AMLR, we would need to start NEPA, which we do have the funding available through that VCTA.
I thought Plateau's already doing the NEPA on it.
They haven't started it yet, no.
They haven't?
And then we also would need to move forward with a preliminary engineering report, which would give us a more finite budget. The application that we submitted for AMLR was very high level budget that was 2 years ago. So we would need to perform a preliminary engineering report in order to get more finite numbers. And then from there, we would need that PER to apply for, well, whether if we move forward with AMLR, we would have to go through the vetting process, the financial vetting process. We would need this preliminary engineering report for that. If we need to apply for any other funding, we would need it for those applications as well. So in order to complete a funding package, we need to have a preliminary engineering report. My thought, and as a group, we have discussed this, and we feel pretty confident that regardless what direction we go, that the site will require multiple funding agencies, such as we've had to put together at the Red Onion 1 project. Just to give a little history about that project, it started in 2018. Our first funding was approved in 2019. It kind of slowed down because of COVID, picked back up in 2022. And just this year, because after we had to go back through and adjust our plan for permitting and some other changes that AMLR required, we actually went from what was originally a $2 million budget to develop the 30 acres to now it's a $3.8 million budget to develop the 30 acres. And just this year, we've applied for and received an additional $1.3 million from ARC and Tobacco Commission. And then also recently, we were awarded an additional $200 and some thousand from AMLR. So we've been able to come up with the $3.8 million. But what's problematic when you do that, though, is application deadlines vary. Some of them only accept applications once a year. We actually just received, we're hoping to go out to bid after the first of the year for Red Onion 1. And we were awarded our Tobacco Commission in May. We just got our funding documents this week for that. So there's a lot of different variables that come with that. But we do think that it would likely require multiple funding agencies, just based upon the information that we have with the state of construction work as we are right now.
They can have different reporting requirements, different schedules for things, and it can be challenging. There's 7 different funding sources on the rehab project, for example. And it's an ongoing issue to make sure that all the funders are satisfied.
Then once we're able to kind of get that sorted out, we would begin our design phase with the engineer. And then once we have a design, that's when the size of the site really comes into play, because at that point, we would have to get our permits. So we would either get a permit from our county building official if it's under an acre, or we would have to go through the DEQ stormwater management process. We're currently going through that process at Red Onion, and we have been going through that process for about 6 months, just to meet the criteria. So basically what happens is we send an application request to DEQ with the design from the engineer. DEQ then will come back, they've critiqued the design, and they are telling you, you need to make A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and sometimes it could go all the way down to X of changes in order to meet the requirements based upon the policies outlined by the state for the stormwater management program. Then it'll go back to the engineer, and the engineer will say, this is great in theory, but on the ground, it's not, this is what's happening at Red Onion, so it's all I can talk about in real life. But does it meet what's happening on real life? So then you have to make comments and you send it back. It takes a little bit, and I think, Ben, you've been through this. It can take some time. If it's under an acre, we go to our building official. We'll have a plan on how we're going to mitigate the erosion and sediment, and it's a much faster process to get the permit just to move forward. The other permit that we would need to get is from VDOT. That's all I'll say about that. Then after that, we would go out for procurement based upon the type of funding that we have. What those requirements are could vary. The IDA by statute does not have to generally follow normal procurement. We did, however, recently adopt a small procurement policy. However, some of the funding, especially federal funding, still requires you to follow procurement as the Board of Supervisors has to follow as well. So we would have to go through the advertising and all that to follow the procurement, and then we would lead into construction. Again, I've been here for 2 years, and we are hopefully going out to bid at Red Onion after the first of the year. But I'm only really kind of hammering that in because I want to make sure that we're sharing with all of the process and the expectation of what it may take to get construction started there. Freddie, do you want to share maybe what some of the options may be or what your thoughts are?
Well, there's several different things that can be done. It can be, we can go through what Dana's talking about, and we have one of these funding sources. For example, and I'm just going to pick this out, if it's retail, we need to find a developer, whether they're local or regional or whatever. There are little to no funds available for retail development. Mm-hmm. Everything that we read says that investment on retail needs to come from the public. And so we have to keep that in mind. If retail is a direction that the board wants to go, there's always the option of transferring the property to the town of Hayside and to let them develop it. That's not off the table. If it's something for housing, there may be other funding options available, whether it be through Virginia Department of Housing, Housing and Community Development, that would allow certain incentives, but there's no guarantee of that. And then if you have mixed use, it may be a combination of those things. But the IDA could hold the property and lease it. The IDA, depending on the funding sources, could sell blocks of the property to people, or we could transfer it to the town of Hayside and let them do it and develop it in conjunction with them.
I asked a question.
Sure.
Does the size above or below an acre, will that affect any of the funding places do they have a preference?
The main thing we have to worry about that is the environmental permitting.
Yeah, but I mean, if you go before one of these resources for the funding, they won't care which way you went.
The only thing we have to be careful of is, and this is something we've not talked about, but we have to make sure if anybody classifies this as a subdivision, then the subdivision ordinance that the county has in place would have to be followed. That's the only other place that I can think of it might be an issue.
Yeah. Do any of our board members have a question?
Madam Chairman, I've always got questions, but I think the mayor of Hayside and the town council should be very much involved with determining which concept is used. And I don't know, Larry, does your
Yeah.
board council know? Have they seen this?
No, they haven't saw any of this, Rhonda, and I really appreciate you thinking of that. That's what I've been sitting here thinking myself, at some point, I'd like to be able to present this to the Hayside Town Council. I sit here and I listen to things, and of course, nobody probably in the room knows the history of what's going on down there better than me. I guess Freddie probably, and maybe Larry over there does, but, the Hayside High School was sat down there vacant for about 5 years before we started the demo on it. And Dana just told us that the demo was finished in 2022. So you're looking at 7 years since that site's had a use in our community. And now, from listening to Dana and Freddie both explain about funding options, we're still several years down the road to do anything. So, at some point, we're going to have to figure out a way to cut through this red tape and get something going down there. And, I know that Dana stays busy constantly, but I was very disappointed to find the other day that this county's not even taking leads right now because of the shortage of staff.
Not taking what?
Leads. If someone calls up and say, I have an interest in investing in Dixon County through the Industrial Development Authority, Dana's not allowed to take a lead.
No, that's not.
You told me you wasn't taking leads.
No, I'm not searching for leads, but if
Well,
I get a phone call.
Search or not taking. You told me you wasn't taking leads.
There must have been a misunderstanding,
Okay,
because what
well-
I'm saying, if someone calls me and says, I just had a phone call today, and we talked about it before we came up here with somebody that's wanting to expand or relocate
Well,
part of their
Dana-
business here. But I am not currently, because we do not have any industrial sites for me to be going out and marketing to bring in industry.
Not everybody needs a site that's pad ready. Not every business needs a site that's pad ready. When we done the restructuring of the Industrial Development Authority, almost 2 years ago now, we put together what's called the vetting committee. We've not had a vetting committee meeting since the election in November.
Right, because we haven't had a project to present to the vetting committee.
And that's my point. We're not getting, you know, we're sinking all of our resources into Red Onion, and I know that's a very, very important spot. And I know that has to be done. I'm just saying, as a whole, these people in this room, we're responsible for industrial development in this county. And that means all of Dixon County. It don't mean just Red Onion.
I agree.
Mr. Yates, to address your concern, the one way to cut through the red tape is if there is somebody who wants to buy a piece of this property and put a bill on it, we can sell it to them tomorrow.
Well,
I mean,
that's where I've been going, Freddie. I've been on the phone
Everybody
today.
needs to understand that this is not only, developed through the IDA. And Dana will tell you, I'm all for the private sector developing this site. If there's anybody watching, if there's anybody listening who has a desire to do something, whether it's to, you know, build some housing or to build a building, we're ready to listen to them.
And that's how I take it to people that ask me
Yeah.
questions about it. Bring
Yeah.
me an investor that's ready to invest in that property.
And
And that
as
cuts
we'll talk
through the
to
red
them.
tape.
And as
That's-
far as
yeah.
I know, though, we haven't had anyone that has come to us and that has said that they are willing to invest and do that.
Probably
So
not
it-
to the Industrial Development Authority, but I have talked to a couple of people.
Right, and I haven't heard of those things,
Well,
so.
and I've been on the phone today with folks. You know, and Larry, can I get you to come in on this conversation? Has there been any movement from the Corps of Engineers about helping any of the businesses in that Hayside relocate through their relocation Section 202 funds?
As far as today, we had a phone call or a meeting scheduled with them today that they canceled. But our meetings have become very short and the Corps does not share hardly any information with us.
Well, that was one of the promises the Corps of Engineers made to us, was they would help businesses relocate. And they ain't done a blasted thing to help nobody relocate. As a matter of fact, they've shut them all off from wanting to relocate. Nobody wants to relocate. All they want to do is demo a building out.
Yeah.
Now, whose direction is that? That they're demoing one of the second largest town in this county. Whose direction is telling them to demo all of our buildings?
I know we're not giving any direction on that, so.
Last month's meeting probably wasn't even 10 minutes.
Well, you know, I asked
was
to be included
very-
in those meetings, and I was very quickly told that I had no business in them. That the town of Hayside wasn't involved in the Section 202 program, with the exception of rebuilding our town hall.
And you're more than welcome to join me at any time during those meetings. We can include you with those at any time. It's the first Thursday of every month at 10:00 a.m.
Well, I had a local business owner call me today. He's got 4 businesses in Hayside. He's wanting to relocate because the building he's in is probably going to be sold to the Corps and wants to be, and he's looking for a place to relocate. He's telling me that the Corps of Engineers has told him they have an option to help him relocate by building him a building on that side up there.
And we're more than interested in talking with them on that.
Okay? But we've got to,
And they can't-
folks, 7 years is too long. And another 3 to 4 years, good grief, we'll all be dead and gone by then, young'uns.
Yeah.
Well, won't we? I mean, let's face it, most of us won't be here in 7 years, in another 3 to 4 years.
Which plan sounds good to you? Sorry about, can I speak?
I don't care at all for Plant City. You know, for one thing, the town of Hayside Safety Department can't control a housing development of that size. You know, you can't bring that many people into a town like we have down there and expect us to be able to handle the number of new citizens, if you were able to fill up all these buildings. Now, if you take Plan A, or Concept A and Concept B, and do some combination there, you might be able to do something. I do like Plan, or Concept B, but, you know, we may have to juggle the numbers some there, but the locations of the building, I'm pretty well satisfied with all that, and I think the community would be too. I'd like to get a joint meeting of these 2 boards and the Hayside Town Council.
I agree.
That would be our recommendation as well, that the town council certainly needs to be involved in
We'll
that.
host you all in Hayside anytime you want to come, or we'll come over here.
I think, Madam Chairman, may I
No,
speak?
Peggy asked first.
he answered my question during his comment, because I asked him which one of these plans did he like
Oh,
best.
okay.
Yeah.
And it's A or B.
A or B, and like I said, I'm not hard on any of those numbers.
Right.
I do like the thoughts of mixed use, Peggy.
Yeah.
Always have, and I
Yeah.
told Freddie and Dana that. I'm all for bringing in new housing in Hayside. And I'm all for Richard's idea for an emergency shelter. Now, I've got the community center taken care of, Richard. You see that already underway with the theater building. You know, we don't necessarily need a community center, but we do need an emergency shelter. Something could happen to us exactly like what happened to Asheville, or what happened to Morristown, or what happened at Marion down in Damascus. Any place in western North Carolina or eastern Tennessee, we are on the razor's edge. If that storm had come just a little bit further to the east, guess where we'd be today? We wouldn't be sitting here having a meeting. We'd be out trying to gather up some food for dinner.
Ms. West, you, go ahead, she was next.
I don't think that the third option, like Freddie said, we do have a subdivision ordinance in this county, believe it or not, we
Yes, we
do.
do.
And it's quite stringent. I agree with Mayor, with Larry, that the town council should be very much, the Hayside Town Council should be very much involved in what to do with this site.
And I think the town council would be agreeable to listening to both sides of the argument of us taking ownership of some of this property. Maybe not the entire space, or maybe they would, you know, I
think
don't
we
make
should-
the entire decisions for the town of Hayside.
Sort of think that it should be given to the town of Hayside, the land, and with our assistance.
I do think, though, that it's important that it's understood that if we're to move forward with whatever we're doing, that there is a process.
Yeah, I agree.
And whether I'm busy doing other things or not, that process does not change. And if it is the desire of both boards that I change the direction of my daily work routine and my boss, then I would be more than happy to talk about that. However, the direction that I have been given up to this point is to figure out how we can develop the site as far as infrastructure, and that's what I've been working on.
Well, how many
So I'm
times-
sorry that you're unhappy with how things have been going.
I'm not blaming you,
But there
Dana.
are 8 other projects in the
I'm
county
not
currently
blaming
that
you,
we're
I'm not
working
blaming
on.
you any at all, and I hope you don't feel that way. I just, you know, there's got to be a movement on this. It's been 7 years.
I think
And
the,
another thing too, how many times have I told you since we've started talking about this project, I don't want to shotgun it. We're doing the right thing by looking at these concepts right here and finding this information out. But 7 years with the possibility of another 3 to 4 tacked on that?
And I understand it's been 7 years. I've only been here for 2, so
I know.
I can only speak to the
Dana, you
last
don't
2
have to- you
years.
don't have to tell me that.
And
I
since
know.
I've been here, we have been working the process
Yeah.
for 2 years.
So
So
about 95% of your time here in the last 2 years has been spent on Red Onion.
there's various other things that's not
Okay.
red onion.
Well,
But
you know, I don't want to pick numbers with you, Dana, but, you know, we all know what you do every day. And I'm not saying you're a slacker at all. I know you work hard.
There's
I just wish that we could spend some time,
there's currently 2 active projects at Red Onion, yes.
I just wish that we could spend some time doing some economic development on the other side of the four-way hill.
And that's what we have been working on doing. But unfortunately,
3
it is
sheets
a
of paper?
process.
Mr. Chair, it's worth pointing out that it was kind of a gut punch whenever the businesses that we had met with, whenever they decided not to relocate, because that's what all this was predicated on. I mean, I can point to the buildings which everybody was going to move into.
Yeah.
And so that just happened in the last little bit.
Well, forgive me for getting, you
Well,
know,
it's all-
emotional about it and upset about it, but, you know, I have people come to me on a daily basis, and what am I supposed to tell these people? I've tried to lead the community over there now through the loss of 2 schools, the loss of just about every business in town. You know, I mean, I don't know what to do.
And I understand that, but it's also a gut punch to come here and to imply that no one else here cares about the town of Hayside when we have very little to work with, to be frank, and we're doing everything that we can.
Okay, very little to work with. A third of the people that lives in this county lives over there.
We
Dana.
have 1 acre that we're trying to figure out something to do
Let me
with.
let
Yeah.
Richard,
Y'all go ahead. I'm finished.
Richard, go ahead.
I agree with Larry on the concept. B, I think there's multiple areas there that would build on each other if we had a shelter combination of different various uses for that. And then we've got businesses and we've got housing. I think they would complement one another if we had all that in one location together. The shelter would complement the businesses and the houses would complement the businesses, and I just think all of it would work very well together. And I understand Larry's frustration. We're watching the town be tore down, brick by brick, and there's nothing we can do about that because it's the core destroying the town, basically. They're not doing like they did in Buchanan County over in Grundy, building a big lot for a Walmart and a gas station and multiple restaurants. They're just tearing our buildings down and leaving a vacant lot there. And that's none of our fault that's sitting here. None of us want that to happen, but.
Well, and the root cause of all the Section 202 money that's flowed into Dixon County in the last decade or so has been because of the town of Hayside. The devastation that we suffered during 1977 flood.
Yes. You're right.
Let me ask Mr. Hall, do you have a question, since you haven't spoke?
With the AMLR grants, where they have all those restrictions on those now, if you use this for a multi-purpose site and you've done the shelter, could you take the AMLR and just use it for something, one project like that on the site?
You could, it would just have, as of now, it would not be wise to do that if there's mixed use. Because anytime that there would be a turnover from a property owner, the federal government has an interest in perpetuity. So anytime, say, you sell a home or there's a turnover in property, you would have to get approval from OSM before that could happen, which can take several months. So it makes it an unviable.
I mean, if the property was separated out, you just had one lot that you was gonna use the AMLR grant funds on, and not the rest of it, like the shelter, it's gonna stay in probably, government control.
Right, I think the bigger question is the AMLR money's gonna be, for the overall site improvement to get the utilities, the changes to the roadway, the repoint the entrances, get all that in. It's really benefiting the whole site because we have no money to build any buildings or anything. It's all for site work and, development. So a lot of the money being used to improve access to the site itself.
I couldn't just say, leave that for this one site and exclude the other properties.
Be a question more so for Freddie, I guess, from a legal standpoint.
You have to understand that the federal interest is much more inclusive than you might first think. It doesn't sound too bad when you first hear it. But what you have to understand is that they consider anything from an easement to a lease, to anything that they would have jurisdiction over. And to me, that makes use of that money almost impossible. Because I submitted a long list of questions to OSM back in February. No answers. Asked simple things like, are you going to consider a lease something that you would have jurisdiction over? No answer. Can you give us a description of what your process is? No answer. Can you tell us how long we would expect a decision to take? No answer. And so with all that uncertainty, I can't recommend to my client that they use these funds until these things are spelled out. Now, anybody can always disregard what their attorney tells us, but I would not recommend using those funds on anything that you want to use for a public development. And I hate that because there's all kinds of money there.
Yeah, I know Wise County stopped their process.
Everybody is pretty well in the same boat that we are. Everybody is scared of what all of this means because it was introduced after we already had projects awarded, or after we'd already submitted for other projects.
Yeah.
You finished, Mr. Hall? I guess it's my turn. And Larry, I
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
say I respect you highly.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And I respect
do.
Richard highly, and he knows I do. And I respect
I
you.
do too. I know.
But I'm gonna say
I've
this,
always done
when you
that.
were appointed, you wasn't appointed to the board as a mayor of Hayside.
I know
You were appointed to represent our county as a
I
whole.
tried to do that too, Shelby.
But every time I've been here with a public meeting with you, it's always focused on Hayside. And I understand that's your town, and I love Hayside. But we need to look, and I think you've been kind of hard on Dana, because I know how hard
No,
Dana
I-
has worked. And you know, we had that Red Engine project started, and I am 100% for that Red Onion addiction project. And I hope how soon it opens. We need it desperately. But we need to focus countywide as Dickinson County Board of Supervisors, as the IDA Board. We need to focus as a county, not as just one town.
Okay, and I agree with you, and I respect that, Chevy, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. I think I have tried my best to represent Dixon County as a whole during my time on the board. If Freddie over there remembers right, I think I was the one on the board at that time that pushed for the purchase of the chip mill property.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
And
And that was a good buy.
I also I was instrumental in purchasing the grain property out there. That was probably a boo-boo.
That was a goofy
That was
part.
a mess up right there. I don't care to admit it. But I knew that the chip mill property would be beneficial to this.
Yeah, it is.
And, you know, I've always been for the developments over here. I was a proponent for the new food city.
Yep.
Anything to do with improvements in this side of the county, I'd just like to see something over on my side. And my comments to Dana a while ago, I wasn't picking on Dana. Honestly, I guess if I had anything to say, it would be to the Board of Supervisors. Because you all need to get her some help.
I know what she does.
It's not right for us not to have somebody that answers the phone and say, you know, come on down here, we're ready to do business.
That's in the process.
I wasn't picking on you, Dana.
I mean, that's all I had to say,
Yeah,
but I
I know,
still
Chevy, and I
respect.
respect you too,
But-
and I mean, I think the world of you. You know, we've always got,
Yeah,
we've
we
had our
have.
disagreements, but we always manage to remain friends.
Yeah, we do.
And that's what you're supposed to do. I'm not mad at anybody, I just,
But I feel like if we sold it off by acres, we would be much better off.
well, I think that might be about the only way we're ever gonna get done.
Yep.
If we can work a deal with the Corps of Engineers to let them build a couple of buildings up there to relocate, if they will,
Mayor Yates, I sent an email while we were talking, I copied you on it to Amanda
Yeah.
Payne with the Corps and asked for a meeting with the two of us on that,
right,
so.
be glad to meet with them. You know, the
That's never
gentleman
been
I spoke to
presented as an
today over there, I
option.
don't, you know, he asked me not to divulge his name, but if you all sit and think real hard, you can probably figure him out. He's wanting to build a building and do a mixed-use building. And
I'd
he
love
said
to
he
see
would put
something
4
like that.
businesses in it.
That's wonderful.
And he said that the lady at the Corps of Engineers said they might be able to have, they had some sort of a special program. When you got up to like 4 businesses that one person owned, that they could possibly help him build a building up there. Now, you know, when it comes to what the county would do, who owns the property now, Fred? Corps of Engineers or the county?
The site,
Yeah,
IDA.
IDA owns it now.
Yes.
Well, so it'd be up to us to, whether we give it to him or sell it to him.
And what we could do, Mr. Chair, and like I said, I say over and over again, the need for the public to become involved in this process. They
Yeah.
just do a lot of this.
Right.
But what we could do is something very similar that we did with the Food City. We just put, you know, incentives into the deed where they have to meet certain metrics, they have to be open by such and
Absolutely.
such date. You know, those types of things, where it's not, you know, people say, well, you're giving away the land. Not if you structure it a certain way. What
No.
you're doing is you're ensuring use of the land.
Right.
we
There's
can
many
do that
ways to
on
do a
this
deal, and you're
side.
one of the best there are around here to make them kind of deals.
Yeah.
I've always admired and respected your work, and I saw you work magic many times.
Well, we're ready to do it again, I just need to send.
Down there at Dean
somebody
Hill's
to-
property, I never heard of some of the stuff we done there until you brought it to my attention, but it worked out real well for
It worked out good.
them down
Yeah.
there.
And that's what I would encourage everybody.
And that was Amber
to-
funds.
Yeah.
But no, that's C-Prop.
It's C-Prop. But I would encourage everybody to remember that. What we're talking about is if the IDA leads the development of the site. It's very different if a private developer becomes involved or if the public is the one doing the developing and not us. There's too many rules that we have to follow to be able to hit the type of timeline that I know everybody wants to see.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to clarify for the board and for those who are listening, I do not answer the phone. I answer all calls. If someone calls me who is interested in investing in our county, I always take those calls. I'm constantly telling Larry about the phone calls that I'm taking. We just haven't had anything that was a legitimate request in a very long time.
Well, I apologize if I maybe got a little heated and maybe said a few things that I may have unknowingly elaborated on, made you look bad, Dana. I didn't mean to do that.
Madam Chairman, may I ask Larry a question?
Yes.
I understand that Kids Central is moving out of Hayside, is that correct?
I can't speak with any authority on that at all, Rhonda, I don't know. The
Well-
only commercial agency that, and government agency that I know for certain that's moving out of Hayside is the workforce building.
Yeah, and they're looking for, is that my understanding, they're looking to locate back in Clintwood?
Workforce,
Within the county somewhere.
With it, well, they can't find no place in Clintwood, is that
Can't
it?
find any place anywhere in the county right now. We're working with them, and that'll be actually something we're gonna talk to y'all about next week, about putting them up some temporary space upstairs, here until they can find
we're
something.
talking about
I don't-
workforce or Kids Central?
Workforce, because we don't wanna lose them to Wise County. If they leave and go back to Wise County, we're not gonna get them back,
They had
so.
a perfectly good building down there that probably would have never flooded if they hadn't wanted to have that $500,000 that you got off
Was
for
that
it.
that bank building sold, Larry? To
Yeah.
the core? And the Kids Central, Sheila Bailey, where they're at now, right?
Sheila owns the building, Sheila
She
Bailey owns
sold
the
to the
building.
core too, didn't she?
Not, I'm not certain about that. I can't speak with authority on that one either. I don't know.
So,
I haven't spoke to Sheila since right after Teddy passed away.
by your understanding, you need a grocery store in
We
Hayside.
do.
Why is it that Mr. Edwards does not want to locate up there?
Can't afford
Same
it.
scenario that Dana brought up while there in her opening comments. The Corps of Engineers just didn't offer him enough money that he can't afford to move. Same with Jason Deal in the Hayside Supply Company across the street from the town hall. Same with Johnny Branham right up the street at the building where the diner's at. I don't know where Veteran Insurance Agency's at in negotiations with Corps of Engineers, but I know Jason said they didn't offer him hardly enough money to even, to move his stuff up there. And the same thing's true with the NS Grocery.
That is so sad that
Mhm.
the Corps is wiping out that town, and they ain't gonna do nothing to help it. Like Richard said, they helped Grundy, built that
Yeah.
wall, and the Walmart, and all them businesses located over there. I've had, the Corps engineer, I don't know, is that are they appointed politically?
That was part of the United States Army.
They're,
Well, they're hard to deal with.
But really, I'm not joking, folks, 24256 is their zip code, and if you'll look at that, that's about the third of the population of the county that has that zip code. You're talking about between 3,000 and 3,500 people.
Oh, yeah. I want to see Hayside prosper. I mean, I know I represent the Clintwood district, but nevertheless, I was in Hayside the other night, last week.
Mhm.
The middle of Hayside, I couldn't get no cell reception. It just burnt me up.
Yeah,
And
we have that problem over there sometimes
the
too.
first job I ever had was in Hayside, and I think that I want to see Hayside prosper. And I think y'all had some bad licks. I really do.
Well, we didn't bring any of it on ourselves
No,
really.
you did.
But it's just the way things developed. I don't have anybody to blame for it except the weather, really. I guess it's the only one you can fuss at. Natural disasters happen every day, and, thank God in '77, the Haystack community was able to build back and thrive for a number of years until after the decline in the coal business. And that's when we all started, the entire county started losing population, and we've all been fighting this battle ever since. All of us folks are trying to lead the community and make good decisions for it.
Madam Chair, can I make another comment?
yes, sir. Go ahead.
Larry's talking about a private investor in Hayside, and I was actually in Hayside today talking to maybe the same one. And they were still interested in doing something on that site, so
Yeah.
that's great.
Well, I know of 3 individuals right now that's interested in doing something up
Yeah,
there.
so that's-
3 different entities.
Yeah.
And I think all 3 of them has the capacity to do it with a little help.
That's a good direction.
Probably 2 of them could do it without any help.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, private industries,
I know private
Really, really
investment's
good.
what we need more than anything.
It is.
Yeah, that's what you
Really
need.
is.
It's hard
all
to-
over the county.
And you know, our numbers are good. Our traffic count numbers are
Just look at Thunder
Yeah.
Campground, that's beautiful down
yeah.
there.
But I mean, look at the traffic count numbers going down Route 80, 83. You know, all around the entire community, there's a lot of traffic goes through the town of Hayside. There at New People's Bank, average daily traffic count is over 3,000 vehicles a day. That's every day. On the average, year-round average, 3,000 cars a day goes through that intersection.
How many private businesses do you feel like are willing to make an investment on that property, Larry? And what
Well-
mixture of, what type of
Yeah.
business, or what is it?
You know, John, probably just from the, thinking back over the last, say, 2 years, folks that have come to me with their ideas of wanting to start a new business in Hayside that have not been able to find a suitable building, along with the 4 that I mentioned earlier today, I've probably had at least 8 in the last 2 years, people come to me wanting to start a business and wasn't able to find a suitable floor space for different kinds of businesses.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to set up a meeting with those folks, we would be more than happy to call a vetting committee meeting, get everybody together to talk with them to see what their options are, you know, to see if they're interested in doing that.
Yeah. Well, I pointed
We
most
just
of them
need to
your
know,
way.
you know, we just need to know to have a meeting set up with them.
I've tried to point every one of them toward the Industrial Development Authority, Dana, and I guess the only ones that's come to you has been the folks with the Hilltop.
Right, and their funding unfortunately
Yeah,
didn't
that
work
fund
out.
just went through, yeah. But I mean, there were at least two or three individuals interested in that old motel up there.
Okay, I only actually spoke with one of them, I think.
Well, I was in deep discussions with 2, and I think there was one more that I never did ever really speak to
Okay.
any.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but.
Yeah.
But the Corps not giving these existing business owners anything
They're not getting any
but the
incentives.
value of their property.
Just the value of the
So
building.
if they want to relocate, they have to make their own investments or
Yeah.
find some type of, if there's grants available.
Well,
or any
a
type
good
of-
example is Jason Deal down there at the Hayside Supply Company. You know, he's got that business that he bought down there off Errol and Roger Fuller. And he's got a bank loan on that where he invested in the business, you know, and he's done improvements. But Jason has really worked hard and he's got a great business down there. But they don't want to offer him anything, pennies for that property that he owns because it's in a floodplain. See, that's how they come back at you. Well, your business is only worth so much because it's in a floodway or a floodplain. We can't
So,
give you.
so the
a
business
penny on the
owners,
dollar.
they have to come up with additional investments
Yeah.
themselves
Mhm.
on top of the value of their business.
Yeah.
So they're basically just not getting anything for their business, their
No,
book
they're
of
not getting
business, they're
anything
just
for the
getting
business.
their property.
No, they don't get anything for the business, just like Mr. Edwards at Ennis Grocery. He doesn't get anything for all the years.
So that's made some of them want to just stay where they're at then,
Yeah.
I guess.
And Mr. Johnson, just to add to that, the funding sources that are available to the locality are not earmarked or used for retail business to build structures that is for retail. So that's where there's, you know, we're able to secure funding that would be for the site development only, for a retail space or housing.
But not the construction or anything like that.
Right, it's simply just the utility and site work and road work.
So
That-
we could build the parking lots and things of that nature?
Right, we could build, correct, similar to what we're doing at Red Onion, as far as making sure all the utilities are on-site and stubbed up. We could do curb and gutter and road, and some slight grading. But as far as the opportunities that are available, there's not opportunities for
If these
retail.
investors knew that, Larry, and that's still very appealing.
It is,
To
isn't
build a
it?
building, because all they would be required to do is build the footers and the shell of their building.
But again, one of the complications of that is if it's coming from the local government doing that work, it's gonna take a lot longer than if a private investor comes in and hires you to do, you know, or whomever to do that work. So that's kind of the kink in it all. Is the unfortunate thing is we've not figured out how to cut the red tape down.
And I know you've tried.
But if a private investor or someone wanted to
Totally,
locate there,
totally different scenario.
then there's not as much red tape. So
They
we'll
would still have to worry about DEQ and erosion and sediment control, but these other things that.
No,
that we have to
the biggest challenge that I think is a common misconception in the community is that there's all these grants available, and it's true, there are a lot of grants available. However, there is not a magic pot out there that if you put together the correct words, that they'll give you a sum of money and just give it to you.
Yeah.
You know, most of the projects that we do require biweekly meetings. There are more boxes to check than you would ever want to imagine. For the most part, we are only reimbursed once we have submitted to them the invoicing and the proper stuff. There's always a chance that the funding source could say, no, we're not reimbursing you for that because it doesn't qualify. Larry and I actually went through this past year the ARC Ready program, which is federally funded through ARC, and it was to try to prepare local governments for federal dollars. And so we spent 9 weeks, 3 hours every week on these Zoom calls to learn about this process. What we're going to get from that is a $50,000 capacity building grant, which we do plan to use to hire a new position, and the Board of Supervisors has graciously committed to continue in that position when that funding has ran out. But unfortunately, that we started that in February. We just got the grant documents. The grant documents are due in December. They're not going to look at them until they're in December. And then they told us, I had actually had an hour-long session with them today. It could be a few weeks to a few months before we're awarded the $50,000 to actually do that. And this one is actually shortened from most of the grants that you apply for federal government. And that's just, unfortunately, the way that it goes. The requirements are pretty stringent. Doesn't mean we can't get money, we can. It just takes time.
And something else to point out, and I can't remember which one of you said it, on the options that are shown, the parking places are what would be required by the building code.
Mm-hmm.
So those are not just picked out willy-nilly. Those are, depending on the type of structure it is, that's the type of parking that would be necessary for those structures.
And also,
Mr. Chairman, I think the concept B is probably the best one of these.
Yeah.
Multi-use.
Right. I agree with you, Paul.
I think that the town of Hayside though needs to get in on this.
Yeah,
The council needs to look at it.
concept C calls for 50 units, and I just don't see where, that's a lot of rental space. And then who's gonna manage it? You know,
I think the intention was if there was a developer that wanted to come in and, that would operate it. But one thing that we didn't discuss is looking at all of the plans. You will see the results of the traffic study at each of the entrances. What we call the south entrance, which is the one that is going closest to Sand Lake, we would be able to have an entry and exit at that entrance point. However, the other entrance point that is closest to the town would actually be egress, exit only, right-hand turn only. So you would not be able to come from the town of Hayside and turn left there, nor can you leave the site and turn left. So there would be no left-hand turns at that particular entrance.
If you close that entrance off completely, you could gain more valuable real estate.
We discussed that, but there was some concerns if there were larger commercial, that there's nowhere for a semi-truck to turn around. Yep. We also looked at what it would do to change to move the road, and it was impossible to do without losing a lot of valuable real estate. Some of this is based upon the location of the existing power lines, which when we met with AEP, moving those underground didn't seem to be an option. There is some pole relocation down on the other end. Also, if you notice here down towards where the south end, he has indicated on here a retaining wall. Obviously, we would get more into that whenever we went through the design phase with the engineer. But just based upon his experience, he does anticipate that a retainage wall would be necessary there. And I'm looking at concept C, let me see. Yeah, it's on, okay. Yeah, well, it doesn't show it here on A, and I don't know if it's just because that was, yeah.
Discussing those.
Okay,
You
so,
need to talk to Scotty.
yeah.
Oh, I see,
Mobile
there is
units.
a return. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
$80,000. You could sell them for $180,000.
Madam Chair, can I speak?
So I guess, oh, I'm sorry, am I speaking over you, Peggy? Go ahead.
Oh,
No, she just asked me. Go ahead, Peggy.
with these diagrams as all showing the, end next to the rescue squad and it's being an exit only, what if a tractor trailer comes down 63 and crosses the bridge? Are they gonna have to go around this curve, come all the way over here and then go up?
That's correct.
Is that decently feasible turn there for
Right,
traffic?
whenever
or-
they conducted the traffic study, they measured all of those things. And part of the guidance that we gave them was that we needed to be able to have enough clearance for a tractor trailer to turn into that south entrance without the need to add a turn lane. Because adding a turn lane to the, to Route 80, what is it? Oh my gosh, Route 80.
Yeah.
Would require much more work with VDOT, and there's not enough space to add a turn lane. So they did go out and they have measured, and based upon the traffic study, there would be enough room here for a truck to make that turn.
Is there not, I'm not sure who may own the property on the right-hand side of the road, going up through there, could that not be?
I don't think that there's right there at that, correct me if I'm
the-
wrong.
It's where Larry probably knows where they used to have flea markets set up there in that wide section. Does that wide section not go up?
No,
at
that's
that-
it's much
It's further
further, it's
down.
further on up the river.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
The wide, there's a one wide spot down there, Peggy, right down there. Do you see that notation there?
Yeah,
I'm looking at concept B.
okay,
You see the building marked B?
yeah,
All right, on the opposite side of the highway there, there's a area down there that's
oh, okay.
there used to be a
That's-
set of steps came down from the high school.
Right,
Crossed,
Well, they parked there, didn't
and
they?
yeah, that was student parking, and I'm pretty sure the school board owns that
oh,
lot over there. That's kind of the way Lehman and I figured it out anyhow.
We also looked at the option of adding a roundabout, of closing one of the entrances and adding a roundabout. But again, it took up a lot of valuable real estate, and in the end, it didn't, the measurements and stuff did not work out.
oh, okay. Oh,
And
really?
it's worth pointing out, if you look at the south entrance, the ingress and egress, that is not as it exists now. There would be have to be some
Work
work
done.
done for it to be able to accommodate what's shown.
Yeah.
It's pretty wide though.
And one other comment, I mean, I understand Larry's, thought about, Hayside not having much, because I feel the same way when you leave Fremont and you turn up toward, 63 going to St. Paul, there's nothing up through there. And there's people coming off of Sandy Ridge, people coming off of Hell Hill, coming off of Dog Branch Gap, coming off my road, Buffalo, coming down from Irvington High School, Trammell. I mean, there's several locations of people that travel that road. But I know we're limited to what that end of the county may have to work with as far as property and all of that. But, I would like to see some kind of progress on that old ball field at Irvington Elementary School across the road there, or come up with something somewhere. And I know we're hurting on sewer in that area, so it makes us very limited. But that may be something that maybe the PSA could start looking a little bit harder at for some sewer projects for that end of the county. Because once you leave Fremont, you come, and McClure Quickway stayed closed for years until Matt bought it. And then this other gentleman bought it. We've lost Irvington High School, we've lost Irvington Elementary. We lost the store at Nora, and Lambert store was open for 40-plus years, I'm sure. And we just, you know, we're sort of suffering on our end of the county as well, you know. I had a guy call me today, or sent me his phone number and asked me to call him, that is hot under the collar that their power hasn't been on, and wanted to know if Trammell was was the power company doing something politically that they wouldn't work with them to turn their power on in Trammell.
No, it's just.
You know, and
think
it's
of the hidden agenda,
just,
don't they?
you know, seem like everybody feels we sort of get the short end of the stick. I guess we're right along with Larry on that end of the county as well.
Madam Chair, can I ask one more?
Yes. Go ahead.
The hillside behind this site, I know it's steep, the contour lines on here, you can see that it's fairly steep. Any possibility at all of developing any more property on that site?
It would probably, we looked at it and
It's rock. It would
several
be-
million
it would be
dollars to
difficult-
remove it.
It would be difficult to,
But not impossible, I mean,
well, with enough money, you can do
Yeah.
it.
Chris, that's where that main big three-phase power line goes up, all the way up to the state, or to the county line up there at Davenport. And AEP wants a lot of money to move that power line. I mean,
so
it's
there's a power line
right there.
right against
I mean,
it,
when you're
okay.
sitting there, you're standing there and you're looking right at a big three-phase power line.
Okay.
And it's, I had a meeting with AEP back many years ago. I think Freddie was down there that morning with me and Rocky Barton and some of us, and it was at least a couple $1 million back then, wasn't it?
For some reason, I don't, this may not be right. I want to say they told us $8 million, but
It was
it was a pile of money.
I almost fell over the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I don't remember what all they were supposed to cover, but after we heard that number,
Yeah.
man,
That was one of the first things that we talked about that morning up there, was moving that power line, and it was a scary number.
I don't remember the number to move the power line, but I remember if they wanted to, you know, dynamite the rock, I remember
Oh,
that. I
yeah.
remember the big
Like you said, but you know, one nice thing about it is if we were to follow on good fortune and there was be some funds to expand that lot, the county does own that hillside over there. Quite a bit up on the mountain there.
And anywhere we develop here, pretty much, I mean, we're gonna have to move some material to make level site.
Now, Chris, out here on the end, near the south end out there, take a look at concept B. You see where that playground's sitting at out there on the south end?
Yeah,
That area out in there would be, you'd be able to enlarge that footprint right there considerably with probably not a great amount of expense.
would that be a fill or a cut right there?
It's pretty much, that whole area back in there where those contour lines are at.
Yeah,
Mostly it's just field dirt, some spoil. So I think, you know, a few days working in there with an excavator, maybe a dump truck or something. Richard, you ever looked at that up on that end? It ain't that bad, is it?
It shows they've been expanded here, doesn't it?
Oh,
What was that, Larry?
I said they did expand the existing somewhat, I think, on
Did
this
they?
drawing, so.
Yeah, it does look like it, doesn't it? Yeah, I think it'd be pretty easy to enlarge that end out there. Not a lot, but some. You might be able to get another acre
yeah,
of level ground.
be good, I
Yeah.
mean, that's,
Well, I mean, like I said before, Madam Chair, I can get our board together, our council, and be glad to. Y'all just let me know what you need.
I think they need to look at these
They do.
first
They do.
before they come to a meeting.
Yeah, and I was gonna hope Dana might be able to print me out about maybe eight or 10 more
And
copies.
then maybe we could all meet together and discuss it.
Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'd like to have enough of these concept drawings to distribute to my council members.
There may be some left over there. We'll have to see how many
We'll make some
there
more
are.
copies before you leave.
Okay.
Just some.
Yeah, and if I could pass those out to the council members, we just met Tuesday, but I could get the drawings to
Special
them to
call
them.
meeting.
Yeah, we could have a
or
special call meeting, yeah.
something. Yeah, and give it to them and let them
If y'all-
study it.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do, is get to them, let them study it, and,
And I can also send the digital files. Adam, would you be able to help me get those files small enough to where I could actually send them out?
Yep.
Okay, thank
yeah,
you.
if you could send those out in a small enough file where I can transfer them, I can mail them to each member of our council too.
Yeah, we should have enough here today for you to take some with
Okay.
you, but I can also send the electronic version.
I know some of the council members probably wouldn't have a whole lot of it would be better if they had a good hard copy.
This.
Yeah, a good copy like this. I mean, I can see this better than I can on any of my devices.
What time frame do you think we should anticipate having another meeting to talk with them? Do you want to meet with them separately on your own before we get together as a group? Do you want to just have another meeting?
I think I'd like to talk to the town council and just try to bring them up to speed.
Okay.
Because they know very little about any of this right now. They know some, but I can bring them up to date.
Okay.
And, you know, just let us have a chance to chat among ourselves and then after that,
Yeah, you just come back and let us know when you
come
would
back
like to
and let you all know.
schedule
Maybe
a special
sometime,
called meeting.
Maybe sometime about mid-November.
And what about the developers that you spoke of? Do you think that we may be able to meet with them?
I'm gonna be working on contacting them tomorrow.
Okay,
again.
sounds good.
Yeah. And if I can, I'll put them through to you.
Sounds good.
Do you think it would be a good idea for those developers maybe to be at the meeting too,
If they'll come, I sure would, yeah.
That'd be a good idea for them to see these plans, so they
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if I can get these in a
whether or
digital,
not they wanna do
if
it.
I can get these in a digital format, I can send them to, one big private company, development company down, I think it's in Charleston, South Carolina, that I've talked to several times. It's a company called Twin Rivers Development or something like
Is
that.
that the group that we have?
We could talk to them a little bit, Freddie and Larry. They develop sites for Dollar Trees, Dollar Generals, family, but not necessarily Dollar Generals. It's Family Dollar, Dollar Tree is their biggest customer. And I had a real good relationship with one of their developers down there, and he moved on. His name was, you might remember him, Freddie, his name was Collins Moe.
Yeah.
And then Collins took another job. I noticed I didn't hear from him, and I called down there, and that's when I found out Collins had moved on. But I've got another fellow down there that I've talked to a couple of times. With Twin Rivers Development, I believe it's called. But I want to thank you all for your conversations tonight, and, you know, I know you all are interested in Hayson. And
We are.
I just feel like we have to work together, and but I am Shelby. I'm for all of Dixon County. I always have been. I'll help anybody in Dixon County that I can.
Me too. Anything else from my board members or Mr. Barton?
I'll be glad to share for clarity as far as the Corps of Engineers, elaborate a little bit on that as far as the property purchased. Of course, you know, the county entered into the agreement with the 202 project years ago, long before my time, most of the board members' time. But just for context, since July 13th, I think it is, we had an in-person meeting here with the Corps, and they informed me that they bought a lot of property in the county. That day I kind of panicked because they were buying it in the county's name, they said. I didn't know where it was. You know, I wanted to go out and try to have maintenance post no trespassing signs, you know, to make sure there wasn't any visible liabilities for the county that we didn't know about. And after many, many phone calls, many emails today, I finally get that list. It took me that long just to get a list of properties that were purchased. And there's 16 on that list is what there is, by the way, is all that they said they've purchased. And 3 of those are commercial structures in Hayside. But besides this list I've got, they won't even communicate with us the names of who they're working with. Everything's by parcel number. They have a number internally that they identify as, and we are totally out of the loop on this.
That's a shame. That's what
with
it
the
is.
Corps. Until you mentioned this, I've never heard anything mentioned about the possibility of them building a structure for somebody. And it sounds like from your discussion, maybe 4 businesses or something that one person has to own to do that. But I'd love to have discussion with them on that.
Well, full
You know?
disclosure, I just got a call about 2 o'clock today. And I don't think the individual who called me even knew about this meeting tonight. He didn't seem to have any idea about it.
Right, so just from our standpoint, the Corps, you know, we're not colluding with the Corps, or we're not working with them, you know, we're trying to find out what little bit of information we can as we can on the Corps. You know, I do think it potential devastating to Hayside residents and the town of Hayside, and some of the things that are happening, you know, I don't necessarily agree with. I would love to see some of these businesses be able to relocate the Corps to build them a structure like they did in Granby and in Buchanan County, you know. You know, I was naive when I first came to the county. I thought that's what was gonna happen, because I
So
didn't really
we-
know anything about the program. Or, you know, I thought maybe the town hall, you know, in doing that, maybe it would locate up there along with some businesses and kind of move things that way. You know, I didn't really know what the process would be, but just to be clear on the core, you know, they share with us very, very little, and Peggy, Richard, you've been on the calls before and stuff, Ron used to be on the calls. You know, we ask questions and generally don't get many answers at all, so.
If we ask a question on a certain property, they tell you to have the landowner to call the 800 number. It's just like, you know,
That 202 plan came into effect when the Ridgeview High School and all that was built. That was part
So it would
of
be
that.
2006 then when all that started,
Yes,
I think.
that was the
Yeah, that's what it
202
was.
plan was in that program. Am I correct, Freddie?
It was like 2005.
2006, 2006.
Yeah.
2006 when
And
the
it was
agreement
in with that same plan.
That was the phase of it.
Yes,
2006 when the agreement was signed.
yeah. That was when that 202 plan was in effect also.
And Larry, if you want to mark your calendar for the first Thursday of every month at 10 o'clock,
Okay.
I will share that invite with you as I get them each
Sure.
month.
he used to be on them.
I did, and I got dropped off.
We'll include
I
you. They're
really
not very
feel-
informative, but we will include
First
you
Thursday,
on
what
those.
time, Larry?
At 10 o'clock on the
10
first
a.m.?
Thursday of each month.
Yeah, if you'll just send me a.
They canceled that one today, so as soon as we get an updated, I'll
Yeah.
share that with you. And then again, I've requested a meeting with Amanda and you and me to discuss.
I saw
the,
that, yeah, and thank you for that.
The
And, you know,
possibility of them relocating there.
To give the Corps of Engineers personnel credit, I mean, how many project managers have we had now?
I don't know if I can even begin to count since
I
I've
don't-
been
I don't
here.
think
how
I
many
can count
we've
them all.
had, so-
Aubrey was one of our best.
Audrey was one of the best, but now Amanda seems like she's really good too, from talking with her.
But, you know, that's all I have with the court. I will echo, you know, back to what Dana said, you know, Dana's not out recruiting anything for Red Onion right now. It's in development. All of our time and resources pretty much is trying to get the rehabilitation project up and running. We have Ambler grant at the Chip Mill property as well, that's not moving. Red Onion has not been moving. You know, we just had a meeting this week. Ben was part of this meeting. You know, I called a meeting with our engineering firm. You know, a lot of things are bottlenecked and running behind, and you know, we're trying to keep things moving, but, you know, she's not recruiting for Red Onion because it's not ready either, you know. We're not recruiting for Hayside, you know, we're just trying to keep our head above the water right now. All of us are, you know, we work for the county, the entire county, all three towns in the county. You know, I'm available anytime, I work all the time. If anybody has anything or anybody's ever interested in anything, and I take a lot of calls, I talk to a lot of people that are interested in starting a business and things, but unfortunately, most of the people that I talk to are interested in starting a business, they've got an idea and they're looking for a grant. They don't have any skin in the game and don't have any money. And of course, I try to connect them with resources that they might be able to talk to get their business plan established, to look at potential funding. We look at the seed-to-seed grants, but it's very few. We got the one Dana mentioned today that come across her desk, the call she got, that may be a potential, that they do seem to have some capital and some funding and looking to do something, but those are few and far between. They are. And it's hard in Dickinson County in general, not just Hayside, but in Dickinson County in general, when we're competing with everybody else to get people here. And a lot of the grants and stuff we get, they're job-based. You know, again, I'll echo what Dana and Freddie said, there's not much out there for retail. You know, most things are commercial, you know, job creation. There is job creation with retail, but, you know, there's not a lot of resources to do that. So, Larry, I apologize if there's been any miscommunications or misconceptions, or you feel like you've been slighted. That's never been intended to.
Well, it's not me, it's the community, you know.
To happen, but again, just please, you know, let's get with the Corps, let's get with these potential developers that you have, let's meet with them, and I'll do everything within my power to work with you and make that happen.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's not about Larry Yates at all.
Larry, when the Corps buys these properties out, and they give them, I guess, are they giving them to the county?
Well, that's what I learned back in July. They're actually buying them in the county's name.
Well,
And so I had properties
Who
out
has
there that I didn't know
responsibility of
about
the-
that could be a liability, and that's why I was.
who has responsibility of the buildings that are left on that property?
They will remove those buildings from the property, and then they sterilize the deed so that, you know, basically I think they're non-insurable. Is that what it is, Freddie, as far as?
It is, there'll be a set of restrictive covenants of what can be built back on the land. And the county is actually responsible for enforcing that.
So it's basically, there's no dwelling can be built back on it.
Be a green space, outdoor recreation, you know, gardens, things like that you can do, but not a habitable structure, so.
In the floodplain, they can be built back on if they are built back
High
in
enough.
compliance with the ordinance, floodplain ordinance, can't they?
That I'm not aware of, I don't know.
I think they are, I think they can, Larry. Speaking with Chris Rakes, it's my understanding that in the floodplain, the ordinance
Not the
allows,
floodway, but the floodplain.
not the
and it may-
floodway, but the floodplain.
And it might allow that, I'm not
Yeah.
sure of the restrictive covenants that are put in there.
As long as they comply with the ordinance, which is very costly in most cases.
Did Dennis Reedy build a house down there high?
The Corps of Engineers hired a contractor to do that.
I mean, he
Yeah.
sold it.
And that building right there is in the floodplain.
It's in the
Yeah.
floodplain.
And that was one of the buildings that was bought out during Section 202. And the Corps did put it back in the floodplain. So yes, I think you could build in the floodplain as long as you comply with the ordinance.
regulations.
Yeah,
They base all these floodplains and floodways off a 100-year flood?
they do. Yeah.
The maps, and there's been a lot of confusion in the Hayside area as far as with the maps. Hasn't there, Larry, where
There
the
have been.
floodplain is, the floodway, the height that the water got to? I mean, it's been.
Yeah, well, the maps
This whole
are so
project's been
old.
very difficult. It's been,
The maps haven't been updated, I think, since sometime in early 2000.
and we've been told for how many years that there's new maps?
New
coming out?
maps should be here just any month
Since
day
I've been
now.
here, that's what I've heard since I've been here.
I
came
have
in
too, and they're
December
gonna be so
24.
accurate. You'll be able to tell the difference between a gravel from here to the other parking lot.
Yet to see them,
I
though.
haven't saw the first one yet.
The flooding that just happened in North Carolina was considered a 1,000-year flood.
It was.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
I heard that too.
Boy, it sure looks it too, don't it? Is it okay if I ask my board if they have any more comments in?
Yes, please.
Any more comments from the Industrial Development Authority Board? Y'all have anything else, Jennifer, John, Danny?
I appreciate everybody getting
Oh.
together and talking like this. It's good to be able to communicate.
AC, you got anything? Okay. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to meet with you this evening. Really appreciate it.
If no other questions, we need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
I'll take it.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, vote the usual way of voting. Aye. Any opposed?